Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Tales from the Mer World Radio with me, Ameera Beth. It's February 27th, 2020, and I'm very excited and feel very blessed and honored to be able to sit with you here today and for episodes ongoing and talk to you about the topics that are very dear to my heart, the topics that I'm here on this planet incarnated to bring forward and to share with you and to really offer you up a piece of my heart, a piece of my soul wisdom and knowledge to help us all understand a little bit more who the Mer people are. Now, if I am brand new to you, my name is Ameera Beth and I call myself a Mer healer. And if you'll give me just a second, because we're Facebook Live, I'm going to go ahead and share this up to my personal page as well before we get too far into it. If you're brand new to me and brand new to my teachings, I am an incarnated Mer being. And I'm going to go into this first show. I'm really going to talk a little bit about my soul history, about where my soul has come from and what has brought me to this point today in front of you to continue to speak about Atlantis and the Mer beings and ancient lands like Lemuria. It's very important for me to bring forward the knowledge and the wisdom and the information that we all kind of know in ourselves. In our DNA is true that the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria were actually real places where many of us feel a resonance and feel like our soul came from. So for me, to recognize myself as an incarnate Mer being is kind of a big proclamation. It's kind of a big announcement out in the world to say that yes, mermaids also do exist. And I feel like many of you here watching today feel very drawn, very connected to the Mer realm and might actually believe that you are an incarnated Mer being also. There's just something deep inside of us that tells us that we are much more than these earth bodies, that our souls come from someplace other than this earth realm. And if that is your feeling, I want to validate that you are correct. We are actually multidimensional, very multi-layered beings. And in this one incarnation here, we are showing up in a human body. But the totality of our soul encompasses many, many aspects. And some of those aspects run very strong within us in this timeline. Mine happens to be from the Mer World, from a land that I call Merlantis. Before I recognized that I was a Mer being, I really didn't even know or understand that Mer beings were a real thing. And a little brief history on me, I was really not born awake. Many of you were probably born with an awakeness in your soul outside of what we call the third dimensional reality. You probably had some kind of awareness that you were much more than your earth body. And I was one of those beings that for a very, very long time in my life, I did not. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until maybe my late 30s, which was about 15 years ago, I just had a birthday yesterday. Yesterday was my 53rd Earth birthday. And it's very special that I get to begin this course, this video series, the day after my Earth birthday. Up until that point, I was really just raised in a normal suburban Catholic Republican household. I really thought my lot in life was to be a wife and a mother and to drive a minivan and to be married. And I really thought for many, many years, because that was, the lineage of my Earth family, that's what we did. We grew up, maybe got an education, got married, bought a nice house in the suburbs, got the big car and had babies. And that was kind of the expectation that I was raised with. And for a very long time after my awakening, I wondered why that was the family that I chose to incarnate into. And at the time, I didn't even really recognize that I had chosen them. When I started to learn that we do pick our earth family, we do pick our circumstances, I started to really question why was I brought into this family that was what we would call asleep? Why was the truth of my identity veiled from me? And why did I choose to come into a family who really had no awareness at all outside of their religion? Certainly not of existential or esoteric concepts, nothing metaphysical. Why was that my family? Like many of you, I really kind of felt like a fish out of water, so to speak. In many ways, I felt like I didn't quite fit in and didn't quite belong to my earth family, to that religion. But when you come in and that's all you believe that's your destiny. You believe that is your place in life. And because we all very much want to please our parents and our family, that's what we go with. And I came into a family who loved me very, very much. They taught me a lot about integrity. My family taught me a lot about self-responsibility. They taught me a lot about family and devotion and loyalty to family. My family was very good to me. My parents loved me very, very much. And I consider my parents, the older I get, the more I just admire and honor everything that they have tried to show me, everything that they have given me throughout my life. And at the same time, I have fully stepped into this identity that is so completely different than what my birth family recognizes. And for any of you who have gone through an awakening or maybe have a similar story where you really feel like you were different than all the people that you came in with, that there was something about you, sometimes we call it a black sheep. I'm not a big fan of the term black sheep because it feels kind of negative, or it feels like we're separate, when in fact we're really not separate. We're just wired differently. We're wired uniquely. And so if you came into this earth feeling that you were wired deeply than the people who are around you and in your birth family, I really want to recognize and validate that how you came in, how you chose to show up in the world is very important. The most courageous of all of us were sent here by Prime Creator during this timeline, during this earth transition, to be exactly that, to be different, to be wired differently, and to show up in a different light than most of the people around us. So if that's your story, congratulations. Congratulations on your courage, and congratulations on for continuing to be true to yourself and true to your authentic soul identity, despite anything or anyone that might share with you that that's not correct. So to continue on with my story, as I went through my very radical awakening and the awareness that everything I had kind of taught and learned in life about what I was to do with my life, as I started to peel back the layers of how that didn't really feel authentic and how I was really stepping into a shoe that didn't quite fit me, and made some choices, some very hard choices to dissolve my marriage and to change my very typical suburban life, trade that in for this life that I now here have on Kauai, Hawaii. This is where I live. I live on the very beautiful island of Kauai. As I progressively made those choices to separate myself from a life that was beautiful, children who were beautiful, and move into this identity, this truth that I was really here to embody on a mission that was planetary, I grew a lot. And I went through a lot of challenges and a lot of heartache and hard times in order to stay the course, stay the path that God was calling to me. When God started to plant and awaken the seed within me about how I was to use my voice and the voice of the Mer and the voice of the Merlantians and the Atlanteans, it was a call I absolutely could not ignore, because my soul could not, once I started to hear it, my soul could not move forward until I said yes, and continued to say yes every single day, despite what everyone around me was thinking and feeling and wondering, as I moved through such dramatic changes and dramatic awakenings. And probably in a broadcast in the future, I'll talk to you a little bit more about what my awakening was like, about who I had to help me along the way, and more about what that looked like in a really raw form. But for now, as I go through my introduction on this series, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how I came into my Mer self and intentions for this show, things I'm going to bring in to future shows with you. We'll go a little bit deeper. Thank you for joining me. If you feel like you want to share this up on your timeline on Facebook, that would be fantastic. Ask others to join in the party, and I will see you back here in just a couple of minutes. We're going to take a break. Aloha and welcome back. If you are just joining in, you are listening to Tales from the Mer World Radio with me, Ameera Beth, Mer Healer, where we explore the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria. This is my very first episode of Tales from the Mer World. I'm extremely blessed and honored to be with you all. And on this first episode, I'm really just going into a little bit of my personal story, how I came to this point in my life, if you will, where I'm called to bring forward on a very deeper, more larger platform, my messages and the messages of the Mer people and the messages from Atlantis and Lemuria to help us all through these changing times, to help us all through what we are going to call ascension. In the first segment, I spoke a little bit about my awakening process, and I would like to give you a little bit more background on me. I live on the beautiful island of Hawaii, Hawaii. I host retreats here regularly, also a couple times a year. I have one coming up in May that I'll talk about a little bit later. I'm an advanced level past life regressionist. So for the past decade or so, I have taken many, many people through hypnosis into other realms and dimensions. One of my strong points is understanding the multidimensional universe and how we are all experiencing an aspect of our multidimensional selves. So past life regression therapy can be utilized to take you into another realm, another version of yourself, where you get to explore some part of you, some part of your multidimensional being that might be experiencing some kind of a challenge or setback or block or even a success that's affecting you in this lifetime. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because I first found out about my Mer self via past life regression. Many years ago, when I was first going through my awakening transition, about 12, 13 years ago, I was in meditation. And I was meditating in my favorite corner like I like to do every morning. And suddenly my hands and my arms began to take on a life of their own and move and sway. And I opened my eyes to see my arms moving involuntarily without me having to do anything with them. And I was kind of a little bit odd, a little surprised, thought maybe there was, angels or something moving my arms. And it was very beautiful. And the movements were very slowly, flowy, very lovely, very soothing. And I spent many days after that meditating and just observing my arms and eventually my whole body moving of its own volition, with me just yielding to this energy that I soon found out came through me as me and was moving my body. So I got curiouser and curiouser about what that meant. And at the time, I was going through many, many radical shifts, many radical changes, reading a lot learning a lot, kind of undoing all the old patterns, all the old, everything, unlearning to relearn during my awakening. And it came across very strong. I read Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. I read his book, and that book had a huge influence on me. And if any of you read that out there, he is a psychologist who kind of stumbled across past life regression therapy by accident. And one of his clients spontaneously went into a past life. And reading that book and reading about the idea that past lives were a real thing and how he had beings around us that were helping us and guiding us prompted me to contact a woman in Portland, Oregon, where I was living, named Julia Ingram, who was a very well-known past life regression therapist at the time. So I went to her for a visit to find out through hypnosis exactly what was happening within my body. And at the time, I really had no idea that mermaids were a real thing. I did not know what I was going to discover, but I very bravely allowed her to guide me into the regression, went into the hypnosis on her couch, and immediately went into the water, etherically. And immediately had my hands over my head and was jumping like this, exclaiming, I'm a mermaid, I'm a mermaid. And I could feel myself somatically swimming down, down, down into the ocean, looking at a city. And as she continued to ask me open-ended questions about what I was viewing, what was going on in my experience, I saw this city underneath the water. And at first, when I saw this city, it was kind of covered in a bubble, or was something that looked like a bubble protected. I kind of thought I was making it up because, we see those things in maybe movies or cartoons. And my left brain really got in the way and said, what is this? You're making all this up. But, Julie was very, very good. And she just continued to ask me questions to keep me in the experience and validate everything that I was saying, because part of my brain was saying, this woman is going to think I'm insane. But she kept me in the experience. And I continued to observe this city, to observe my body, which had transformed into a mermaid. I saw my tail. I saw my very long, beautiful golden tail with the rainbows. I saw other mer beings around me. I saw the dolphins. I saw the whales. And most of all, I saw Mer Atlantis, which was my home under the sea. And I became very, very emotional in this experience. Very emotional to be reconnected with something that I had forgotten existed and was such a prominent part of my being and my soul. And as we continued through the regression and she connected me with my guides, she connected me with other mer beings, I began to allow the story to unfold of who I was and what I was here to do. And of course, I was just really blown away to find out the energy moving through me was my mer self. My mer self, this aspect of me called Ameera, that still existed beneath the sea, and that she would integrate and she would move through me. And I found that I could use my hands and arms in healings, chakra clearings, taking headaches away from people in my family, clearing energy around other people, and of course around myself. It's a form of light language that flows through my body. I can also create sounds with the movements as well, but the movements are part of me literally embodying my mer lineage. And that experience changed me so dramatically, changed my perception of not only who I thought I was, but who I started to realize the people around me, everyone around me was, that we are multidimensional beings with a soul that has an embodiment and many other realms of reality. And so if you have felt that, you resonate with the angel realm or the fairy realm, or maybe star person realm, if you feel like you look up the stars and you look up to the heavens and you belong there, you probably do. And being with that experience with her set me off on a journey, not only to discover more about myself, but discover what this all meant, what all of this meant to us earth in our earth bodies, and what it meant to us as planetary beings. So right away I joined Julia Ingram's past life regression course, and I went through 3 levels to the advanced level. because I started to see not only did it give me so much information to go into trance to these other realms, to heal these other aspects of myself, to understand more about myself, to understand more about my destiny, about my soul purpose. I had many, many remembrances of Atlantis, had many remembrances of being underneath the temples and the healing caverns. I had remembrances of the fall of Atlantis, which I will begin to share in some later episodes. And I wanted to give that gift to as many people as I could. So as soon as I came certified in regression therapy, I started taking clients, and it launched me on a career path that has been so deeply meaningful and profound to reconnect other people to their own soul's truth through their own higher self. In regression with me, you go to your higher self. You go to those parts of you that know and understand and remember what's going on in these other lifetimes. And my role is simply to facilitate and to help guide you through. So as I began to open up many other people, as I opened up myself to these remembrances, when one of us starts to remember and act in that remembrance and act in that healing, it does ripple out effect to the rest of the planet. And I realized how important this work was to help reconnect other people to their multidimensional selves, to help them on this timeline. Because what helps us the most, this reality is where we need the most help. We are all mer angels. We are all from other realms and realities bravely come to this timeline to help our fellow humans and to help ourselves with this process we call awakening and ascension. So as I started to really re-embody the remembrance of Ameera, of my soul name, of the energy that flowed through me, and was given my soul assignments of how that was about to express in the world, I realized, I was told by Ameera that I would need to take and embody her name. My birth name is Elizabeth. My parents gave me a very beautiful name for a queen, and they called me Beth. And so in honoring of my soul name and in honoring of my birth name, I chose legally several years ago to take on the name Ameera Beth. And so that is the perfect blend of this world and this other world. And it's the taking on my spirit name, my soul name, changed the vibration of my soul, of the work I was bringing forward out into the world. It changed everything about how I was going to begin to express myself. So if you're wondering your own soul name, or maybe some of you know your soul names, stepping into the vibration, and not everybody is maybe meant to legally change their name to something else. But if you have decided to step into, no matter how you have decided to take on the vibration of that name, congratulations on that bravery as well, because that will also begin to escalate your soul mission and your soul purpose for this planet. When the Mer energy flows through me, when I become a channel, and I'm a Pisces sun, first house, so that channel is kind of also connected for me big time. I also happen to have Mercury retrograde in Pisces in my first house, which is what Mercury is doing right now. So the astrology for me to bring this out into the world is very, very strong. The universe, when we step into our light and our path, when we have the courage to say yes, when we have the courage to step out of our ego and our fears and really give our sacred yes to that which we know our soul is waiting to participate in, the universe will show up for you. God will show up for you. The universe will show up for you as you begin to show up for yourselves. The astrology will show up for you in right time, right place, when you decide to show up for yourselves. We always have a partner in spirit. We always have this partnership going on. Sometimes we're more aware of it than others, but you really, really need to know and understand that you showing up and giving your sacred yes and being brave will always allow spirit to meet you halfway and to bring you further. And that's really what I try to do in my life. I try to be that living example for other people, showing up for myself and paving the way, like many of us healers, many of us teachers, light workers, if you will, do. We have to go first. Somebody has to go first. Somebody's got to take those big first steps and put themselves out there. And really what I have found is I've started to do YouTube videos talking about the Mer in Atlantis. as I've started to show up publicly over the years, talking and speaking my truth, unequivocally, it has been met with thank you, with people coming forward and really just thanking me for speaking my truth because they feel as if it is their truth as well. We all feel a little less, crazy when we're crazy together. And we realize it's not insanity at all. It's simply another version of reality that we're allowing ourselves to embrace while staying also very grounded in this reality. So we have this reality, this third dimensional selves that we are expressing ourselves through. And as we go through lighting up our 13 chakras, opening up our stellar gateway, and bringing the light of source and spirit deeper into our own personal embodiment, we begin to realize that there are many, many versions of reality that are out there. And as we choose to walk deeper into those other versions of reality, it's very important that we also stay very grounded and rooted into this one, into our human selves. We are not here to leave these human bodies behind and go on to something else on this timeline. We're actually meant to take our bodies with us. And along with that comes acknowledging lower chakra energy, the survival, the all the traumas, all the things, all the materialism, all the physical things that go along with human bodies, and the lower chakra energies are very, very important. They're really just as important, if not more important, than all the higher chakra energy and our connection to God, our connection to Earth, our connection to Gaia. Bringing that up into our heart centers is really the way we stay grounded, we stay focused, and we can walk along our soul path and our earth path simultaneously with a foot in each world, but clearly embodied into our higher and lower, into our higher and lower selves simultaneously. Many of us, as we begin to open up and begin to awaken, begin to look outside of ourselves for truths and different variations of truths, because we need to learn and we need to grow from other people. Life is about relationships with other people. It's about our connections to others. Our human self really needs and craves connections through other people. So as we go outside of ourselves and begin to look to other healers and teachers like myself, I'd like to express to you, it's always very, very important that you know and understand that the truth is always within you. Others around us just start to unlock those truths and help us to remember that truth and that knowledge that lives within us. And as the wise woman or the wise man in you starts to have these realizations and remembrances, and maybe starts to look to other people like me, whenever you look to any other teacher or healer for truth, for knowledge, take what works and leave the rest. Okay, you integrate what works with you and what's worth with your truths and your belief systems in that moment. There's nobody outside of you that really knows or understands more about you than you. The rest of us that are out here, and I have many wonderful teachers and healers who have come forward during my awakening, during this time period, who have helped me a very great deal, who have helped me to remember in those moments when I can't quite get there by myself. They've helped me to unlock and remember through their intuition, through their remembrance, more about who I am. We do need other people to help us with all of that. And my purpose, my role here as a voice for the Mer and a voice for the remembrance of these ancient lands is to remind you that you already know and remember. It's already encoded in your DNA. It's already encoded in your subconscious. And that my role is to simply allow you to begin to say yes to those remembrances and to bring them forward deeper into what you would call your truth, and walk through and walk within them. If you hear me say something on this program or in my teachings that doesn't quite resonate with you, that's also okay. What is most important is that we are true to ourselves. We are true to the truth and knowledge of our soul. And you're going to hear me repeat in this series many things over and over again. And the reason I repeat things over and over again, so that it becomes more of an anchor within you, so that you can bring it more into your soul's truth, if that is what you choose. My connection to Atlantis, my connection to Lemuria, and Kauai is Lemuria. I live on the actual heart of the Lemurian civilization. And just being on this land, walking on this land, has unlocked and helped me remember so many things about this timeline and these great lands that many of us really love and adore and are so curious about. So in this series, some of the things you can expect to hear is more about Lemuria, what life was like in Lemuria, what life is like in Atlantis, and what life is like as a mer being. We're going to break for a quick station identification, a few commercials. And when I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Atlantis and Lemuria. I'm going to talk to you about Archangel Metatron, who has been my teacher and healer. I'll see you in a few minutes. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Tales from the Mer World Radio with Ameera Beth. If you're just joining us, this is where I will be exploring the ancient lands of Atlantis and Lemuria. And I had a little bit of a mishap on the commercial break. I've got a couple of candles underneath my table here, and I set my microphone down, my ear wire, landed on a candle, and when I came back, it was on fire. And it's no longer usable. So I'm finding a lot of amusement in the significance that perhaps, my voice is on fire today or something like that. So if the sound quality is not quite as good, my apologies. I'll have a new microphone the next time that we speak. And for now, we're just going to go for it. Where we left off was talking about Atlantis, Lemuria, why these lands are important to me, why the Mer World is important to me. And I want to go into a little bit about my mentor, my teacher, who goes by the name of Archangel Metatron. And some of you might be familiar with Archangel Metatron and sacred geometry. Archangel Metatron holds a configuration called Metatron's cube, which contains all the platonic solids and all sacred geometry that is known. One of my missions, my purposes, my passions in life is to bring sacred geometry and knowledge of the esoteric concept of sacred geometry out to the collective on a broader scale. So along with my past life regression therapy work, I work very closely with Metatron on sacred geometry. I teach courses on sacred geometry. I've got a course on my website that you can pick up really inexpensively if you would like to learn. And then I teach them on Zoom a couple of times of the year. But what's really exciting for me about sacred geometry and about this work is I actually have a clothing company. And my clothing company is called Wisdom Wear. And I infuse crystals and Dara crystals into sacred geometry prints and then screen print onto our organic bamboo clothing and some hemp. So if you're really interested in wearing sacred geometry, that's a great way to literally embody and wear sacred geometry in your field through my clothing line, which you can find at wisdomwear.org. Other than that, in future shows, I'll be talking a lot more about sacred geometry. Archangel Metatron has been exponential in opening me up to the shapes and patterns that create the universe, the shapes in nature. And I work exclusively through sacred geometry and everything that I do in life, my healing, etc. Again, if you're curious about sacred geometry, there'll be some shows going on about sacred geometry specifically. And, when Archangel Metatron came to me 6 or 7 years ago, when I was deep into trying to figure out my soul path, he called me to come to Kauai and to hold a retreat for women, a water healing retreat, which I did in 2014. I brought a group of women and we called it the Daughters of Mu, which is Lemuria, to Kauai, and we did a retreat here. Archangel Metatron is a very active, masculine, gentle masculine energy. And he has been my main guide through the course of my awakening experience. And his messages are all about us awakening the DNA codes, the geometry codes within ourselves to raise our vibrations through understanding what sacred geometry is and how to utilize it in our everyday lives for manifesting and creating. So, Archangel Metatron, along with all the archangels, and many of you out there are probably very familiar with archangel energies, along with the dolphins and the whales and the mer beings, are mostly how my energy is expressed out to you. There's a transmission that comes through the water energy that I hold in my work field. And water is sacred geometry. You know, water molecules, water atoms. Water is life. Water is sacred geometry that holds memory. This is a water planet. This planet originally was all water. And then at some point in time, land masses were formed. They came up from the core of the earth and became a water and an earth planet. This planet, because it was once always completely covered by water, the imprint of this is as a water planet. Water was the first element that fell from the cosmos, and the mer beings came with the water. So as we go through this process of this series together, go through our course, Tales from the Mer World, I'm going to be transmitting a lot to you, memory and information that comes from water. Lemuria is a water civilization, as was Atlantis. So as our planet slowly returns back to a water planet, and that's what's beginning to happen, our planet is transitioning back to a water planet. The lands of Atlantis and Lemuria, which once fell from great cataclysmic events, are beginning to rise up from their own dimensions, because you know they still exist in another dimension, because we are in a multidimensional universe. Those lands are rising up, quite literally, those lands are rising up, and they are also rising up through each one of us as beings who lived, who moved, who worked, who were in community there, and still hold the imprints of Atlantis and Lemuria in our heart space. Atlantis was the masculine, Lemuria was the feminine. They each held a balance in that dynamic. And for a period of time in our history, they lived simultaneously, they coexisted simultaneously between each other. And when Metatron began to speak to me about the sacred geometry of Atlantis and about the existence and the community and the lifestyles of those two great lands, he began to speak to me about bringing forward the Mer's participation, how the Mer were important to these lands. So in future episodes, you're going to hear me talk about more about the Mer beings, more about what Merlantis was like, more about how the Mer were very prominent in the Atlantean civilization, and also where they fit in with the Lemurian civilization. You're going to hear me talk a lot more about sacred geometry, how sacred geometry was formed on the lands, actually the actual buildings, the lands, the landscape itself. We're going to talk about the fall. We're going to talk about the fall of Atlantis, the different incarnations of Atlantis, the different incarnation of Lemuria, and what happened with that land, and how that still exists and dwells within all of us. I'm going to talk about Metatron, the archangels. We're going to talk deeper about where our planet is going as it is in relationship to going back into becoming a water planet. And I'm going to talk to you about something called the creative destruction. The creative destruction and the natural cycles of life that allow a birthing, a destruction, and a recreation. And for those of you who are following and in tune with what's happening with Gaia right now, we are indeed in the times of the creative destruction where something new is coming down so something new can come in its place. I'm also going to have some special guests. I'm going to have a wonderful astrologer on. We're going to speak about the astrology of Atlantis. the few other people lined up that are in this vein of Atlantis and Lemuria. We're going to have some amazing conversations and allow you an opportunity to call in, allow you an opportunity to chat with me, to chat with my guests, and ask the questions, the things that are going on in your minds and in your hearts about what it is you think that you would like to know for your own personal healing, for your own personal ascension, and also what's happening on a planetary scale. And I hope to hear from many, many of you Mer beings out there who want to communicate with me, talk to me about your experiences, talk to me about your remembrances as being in the water, being a Mer being, a water being, and being with the wonderful cetaceans, the wonderful dolphins, and the sea turtles, and the whales, and all those creatures that are so important to hold the water grids together for all of us. The importance of waters and healing the waters of our planets. I'll do a segment with that and take you through a water healing experience within your own body, and something that you can do to heal the waters within yourself and heal the waters on this planet. So over the next 6-7 months, and maybe beyond, that we are going to be together. You can look for this program on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of every month at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which will be 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be here. I promise to bring you a series of shows that will be entertaining, and will also bring you valuable information that you can help to integrate into your own experience. You can find me at ameerabeth.com if you would like to hit me up for a past life regression or 13 chakra energy healing. I'm available for those kinds of services. I'm also going to be doing an online class on March 15th on the 13 chakras, awakening and activating your 13 chakra template. You can find information on that on my Facebook page. You can find me at ameerabeth.com. My business page, I've got an event up there, or reach out to me personally. You guys are always welcome just to drop me a note, say hello, find out a little bit more about what my events are, how to join my classes, any questions you might have as a result of this program that we're doing today. Always great too. And I just want to really thank you all for tuning into my first show. Very special for me to sit in front of you. Very, very much a very big blessing to be with all of you during this Earth transition, and just share in the mana and the life force of Kauai and of the oceans and of all the beautiful sacred spaces on this planet that we all need to be doing a little bit better job honoring and protecting. Allowing the elements and nature to support and sustain us is absolutely number one. And in closing, I would like to leave you with a pearl from the Mer World. At the end of each episode, I'll have a little pearl from the Mer World to offer up to you. And I see I've got a couple minutes left to speak before I give that out. And I guess in closing, I'll just let you know also that the Mer beings, the elementals, all of those that exist in other dimensionals are more actively coming forward to meet and greet us. All these beings, the Lemurians, all the star beings that are here exist at a frequency that is just outside maybe of our third dimensional perception. They will not lower themselves to meet us. We have to raise ourselves to meet them. So they are here holding the templates. They are here holding the light for all of us as we go through our evolution. Remember that we are them. There are other aspects of you that are existing in these other dimensions. Basically, you are holding the light for yourself. You are holding the frequency for your other selves in this dimension. So as we all raise up collectively, as we all lighten and purify our hearts and our attentions and move closer into acknowledging and integrating with the elementals and with the elements themselves, the more likely, the more active the participation we can have with the healing of this planet. So our frequencies are a little bit like a radio dial. Everything is frequency, everything is vibration. it's kind of like a radio station. So if you're tuned into a specific radio station and listening to that, it's not that you can't hear the other radio stations. It's that's what you are dialed into. But as you begin to turn the knob on a radio station and you begin to hear the next one over as well as this radio, you're tuning yourself into both frequencies. You are tuning yourself into something you couldn't hear or acknowledge until you turn the dial. So as you begin to turn the dial of the frequency of your heart and the frequency of your energy, the pearl from the Mer world that I am going to give you today is that just by tuning into that dial of your heart and acknowledging and knowing there are other frequencies around us, you will be able to raise yourself up higher to be with that which you already are. And your pearl from the world today is a quote from Leonard Cohen. Love Leonard Cohen, wonderful, wonderful singer, wonderful artist. If you don't become the ocean, you will become seasick every day. Thank you for allowing me to express myself today, and I'm sending you oceans of aloha from the island of Kauai.